Good day, everyone. So my name is Brian, and our topic is to approach in resolving conflict in South China Sea with United National Law of the Sea Convention (UNCLOS). This presented by the Conqueror with teammates of Wyman and Yutong. This is our table of content. For introduction of UNCLOS, it was adopted in 1982, came into force in 1994. It also widely known as the Constitution of the Ocean. For the core functions, it was to set rights and responsibility at maritime zone, a protection of maritime area, and also provides dispute settlement mechanisms. Talking about the South China Sea conflict, it was mainly about the contest over sovereignty and maritime entitlement, and also overlapping claims create tensions over resources, rights, and security. In more precise, China asserts comprehensive sovereignty over the South China Sea by claiming numerous submerged features and by drawing a U-shaped boundary line, also known as the nine-dash line, over the Spreadlitz and the Paracel Island from historical claims in 1947. China also draw a straight baseline around the Paracel Island, claiming it as the internal water of China. Lastly, China also have a land reclamation for military base on the island, expanding its exclusive economic zone. The key players here are China, Taiwan, Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Vietnam. For the strength of UNCLOS is to have a peaceful dispute resolution mechanism. UNCLOS offers state legal pathway to resolve dispute without any military confrontation. It also have a legal clarity and standardization. Standardize the definition for internal water, territorial sea, contiguous zone, exclusive economic zone, continental shelf, and also high sea to avoid ambiguity in maritime claims. Lastly, would be a global legitimacy and acceptance. UNCLOS has over 168 signatories, provides a legitimate legal framework recognized by most countries. Moving on to weaknesses of UNCLOS, first would be the lack of enforcement power. There is no military or policing arm to enforce its ruling, depends on voluntary state compliance. In this case, China rejected the ruling outright, called it a null and void, and continued militarization and patrols in the area. Next would be ambiguity creates legal loopholes. The terms in UNCLS are vague and allow multiple interpretation. In this case, Article 121 fails to clearly define what constitutes an island versus a rock or a low tide elevation. This allowing China to justify artificial island building and expand its claim. Lastly would be a political and diplomatic limitation. The reliance on diplomacy and state consent creates avenue for forum shopping and politicized legal interpretation, weakening the treaty's impartiality and effectiveness. Lastly, the critics on UNCLOS. There is no mechanism for punitive action or sanctions. It does not provide any formal tools for punishing violations. So without any penalties or defiance, UNCLOS ruling can be symbolic rather be actionable. It relies on political will, not legal coercion. Next will be a geopolitical power can undermine legal equality. Despite its one law for all design, UNCLOS cannot overcome power imbalance between states without broader international support. Lastly would be UNCLOS is outdated for modern maritime challenges. UNCLOS was designed in the late 1980s and it does not address many 21st century issues. For example, autonomous naval drones or cyber threats, and artificial island building with advanced dredging.
Hey everyone, my name is Kirinto and now I'm presenting about the area of improvement. So they have three parts to improve the policy. The first is the third-party monitoring and enforcement. So why is important? This is because there is no independent enforcement of Uniqlo's decision or transferring on ongoing activity. So this causes many of the country continue Islam building, militarization, and illegal fishing without the oversight. So this action is to establish an international monitoring mechanism that document violation and create the global pressure for accountability. So for the part in how to implement it, there are the two actions. The first is Uniqlo's need to approve and create the United Nations backup maritime monitoring agency with trained and equipment with surveillance technology like satellites and drones. Secondly, they need to deploy neutral officers in dispute zones to collect and publish regular reports to use those findings to inform the international deploy action. So for the second suggestion is can deploy a legal binding and also can be called soft law or conduct. So for why it's important to implement it is because the current declaration of Code of Parties, DOC, in the South China Sea adopted in 202 by Asian and China. The document is not binding and also lack of enforcement and causing the field to prevent aggressive action. To improve it, the person in charge need to push a binding code of conduct under Asian Uniclass alignment. The content may be include no aggressive planning, use of safe navigation, and ban of new military outputs. For the border support, the South Law feature must be included to apply to countries who are restricted to ratify a binding pact. So the purpose is to create a formal framework that set the behavior node, reduce the risk of conflict and government's conduct even without fully resolving sovereign claims. Lastly, go to the last part, the suggestion of improvement can initiate demilitarization. Recently, the South of China Sea is undergoing an arms build-up. So this is heightened risk of miscalculation and also accident conflict. So this initiative is to reduce military tension and also preserve the South of China Sea as a zone of the peace. Therefore, introduce an Uniqlo-based demilitarization protocols applied to dispute marine area is important. In Uniqlo-based demilitarization protocols must ban the new military base construction and also ban missile and radar deployment. Lastly, need to ban the overseas military exercise in dispute exclusive economic zone. Additionally, for this initiative to improve it, the person in charge can deploy the international observer by proposed monitoring mechanism to verify compliance across various countries. That's all for my part, and I will pass it to the next part. Thank you.
Good day, sir. My name is Choaman, and I will present about the suggestion for betterment towards sustainability. First, the countries can conduct multi-track diplomacy. The first track diplomacy is inefficient in resolving the dispute in long term because the mediation process is only including the government. In South China Sea dispute, there are several parties involved, including the Asian countries and China. Although the first track diplomacy able to resolve disputes, but it is hard to support it sustainably. Some countries wish to have a bilateral settlement, but it is hard to achieve because it is contradict with China's interests. By conducting multi-track diplomacy, more parties will be involved in mediation, such as non-government, business, citizens, education, and etc., which integrate different opinions to find better solutions for disputes. By conducting multi-track diplomacy, it will encourage bilateral dialogue and multilateral negotiations. Also, create a communication space without compromise the territorial integrity and ensure high security of sovereignty. Next, the joint development agreement need to be conducted to ensure the sustainability of South China Sea. This is because the major islands in South China Sea, such as Paracel and Spratly Island, are rich in geographic features in terms of islands, rocks, and reef. There has also rich resources in South China Sea, such as hydrocarbons, natural gas, and fisheries. Thus, it is important to conduct JDA to encourage the collaboration rather than compete in sovereignty issues. This can encourage the resource sharing, which can ensure that the exploitation of the resources is conducted in environmental friendly manner. In the end, the countries can enjoy the resources without the conflict. Last but not least, the countries can strengthen their regional security mechanism. The existing mechanism, Code of Conduct, is lack of foundation in consensus as China is delaying the Code of Conduct by building an island in the sea and the strong disagreements between the Asian countries in how to against China thus become the challenge for them to take the strong action. Thus, the countries can form the bilateral and multilateral long-term sustainable relationship by starts implementing from high consensus methods such as the marine environmental protections, fisheries management, and the humanitarian rescues. The Asian countries also can maintain the relationship with United States to deal with China. China also should respect the international law by providing the open dialogue. So this is all from my part. Thank you.
Go to the conclusion part, the UNICLO's objective is to provide dispute settlement mechanism. However, they have some argument which the UNICLO's is outdated for the modern maritime challenges, and also geographical provide can undefine the legal equality. But they have some advantages for the UNICLO's, which is legal clarified and standardized sense, and also peaceful dispute resolution mechanism, and also the global legitimate and accepted. However, they have disadvantage, which is ambiguity. It creates the legal loophole, lack of the enforcement power, and also the political and deployed limitation. For the improvement on policy, there are the three parts, which is third-party monitoring and enforcement, deployment of legal binding or soft law code of conduct, and also the last, which is the demilitarization initiative. So the UNICLOS also affect the systemic part. To improve it, we can conduct multi-train deploymency and also conduct the joint deployment agreement. Lastly is the strength regional security mechanism. That's all for our part, and thanks for watching.
So here is our bibliography.